Poate că la prima vedere zona arctică are mai puțină importanță pentru majoritatea societăților, doar că de siguranța acestei regiuni depinde întreaga planetă. Vorbim despre un ecosistem unic și fragil, despre o abundență de resurse care provoacă o competiție pe măsură și despre noi rute de transport care se conturează odată cu topirea gheții. Toate acestea aduc în plus și o prezență militară în creștere din partea tuturor statelor arctice. Discutăm despre toate aceste provocări cu Eivind Vad Petersson, secretar pentru afaceri strategice și globale în Norvegia, o țară care are aproape jumătate de teritoriu în Arctica. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport diplomatic. Eivind Vad Petersson, Secretary for Strategic and Global Affairs of Norway, welcome to Diplomatic Passport.
Thank you very much.
În arhitectura de securitate, geografia este un factor decisiv. Frontiera țărilor europene democrate cu Rusia nu este doar o limită teritorială, ci o zonă strategică extinsă care începe în nordul îndepărtat, dincolo de cercul arctic și coboară până la Marea Neagră. În acest coridor geopolitic se desfășoară simultan competiție militară, rivalitate energetică și confruntare informațională. În regiunea Mării Negre, efectele războiului început de ruși în Ucraina sunt vizibile și imediate. În zona arctică, dinamica este mai puțin cunoscută, dar nu mai puțin relevantă. Acolo, Rusia dispune de o infrastructură militară consolidată.
The border of Europe with its main aggressor, which is Russia, starts from the ocean Arctic and it ends somehow in the Black Sea. So it's a common problem for all of us. We already know how Russians behave in our region, especially if we witness what they do in Ukraine where they started the war. How is their behavior in the Arctic area?
No, you're perfectly right. I mean, we meet Russia in the far high north, Romania here down along the Black Sea, and as allies it's very important to coordinate closely, as it's the same Russia that we meet in the Arctic as Romanians and other countries here in the Black Sea region face here. And it's the same Russia that's conducting a war of aggression against Ukraine. In the north, things are maybe a bit different. We have a land border, 197.7 kilometers, but also a maritime border in the Barents Sea. Luckily, things are still fairly stable. There's more space up in the Arctic than in the Baltic Sea or in the Black Sea. And it is our reading as well that there's a mutual interest in keeping things fairly stable, and that's a good thing.
But how do they prepare? Because they do have a lot of developments as well, from my knowledge, in terms of military building capabilities in the Arctic area.
No, most certainly. Just 150-200 kilometers away from our border, the northern fleet of the Russian Federation have their nuclear submarines.
In Kola Peninsula.
Exactly. And this is possibly the place on the whole planet with the largest, strongest concentration of nuclear weapons. Underlining again, for us at least, the need to keep things stable, avoid misunderstandings, unintended escalation that could become very, very dangerous. So most certainly the Russians have capabilities up in the north. But just across our border, it's actually surprisingly empty. The land forces have packed up and left for the front in Ukraine, suffered huge losses. So directly across our border, and we keep very close eyes on what's going on. It's actually historically rather empty, but in the Arctic, the Russian Northern Fleet is still there, and they have their strategic forces, and they have an air force as well, of course.
Peninsula Kola este una dintre cele mai sensibile puncte strategice ale Rusiei. Aici este concentrată o parte semnificativă a triadei sale nucleare, inclusiv flota de submarine purtătoare de rachete balistice. Peninsula Kola are o poziție geostrategică importantă. În cazul unei crize majore sau a unei escaladări NATO-Rusia, accesul către Atlanticul de Nord și rutele maritime dintre Groenlanda, Islanda și Marea Britanie ar depinde în mod decisiv de controlul acestei zone. Astfel, pentru aliații NATO din nordul Europei, dar și pentru state de pe întreg flancul estic, inclusiv cele din zona Mării Negre, dinamica militară din Kola nu este o problemă îndepărtată, ci una direct legată de arhitectura de securitate europeană.
And speaking of Russians' arsenal in Kola Peninsula, where they have the nuclear submarines, will Norway, for instance, ask for more NATO, let's say, in that region in order to better defend itself, or it's enough what you have now?
Norway is a founding member of NATO. And back in 1949, we also took the sovereign national decision that, yes, we want to be part of an alliance. We were stronger together. But we chose not to have our allied forces permanently based in our country, meaning that there are no bases of permanent stationing of our allied countries on Norwegian soil. Having said that, we very much have encouraged and facilitated allied training and exercises in our country, meaning that those numbers have gone up and down the tens of thousands throughout the years. That also goes to a certain extent beyond training, in that we, together with our allies, show a presence in the Arctic and in the high north. Having said that, this is close to home for us, literally, and we take responsibility of patrolling, showing presence in our own immediate neighborhood, but we are also cooperating very, very closely with our allies in that regard.
We see what Russia does in the rest of Europe when it comes to the hybrid wars. I'm talking about espionage, sabotage, all sorts of hybrid attacks in case of disinformation, for instance. Do they behave the same when it comes to the Arctic area?
It's the same Russia on the other side of the border. Of course, they use different tools from different contexts, but we are most certainly not spared for the various hybrid tools that they try to use to influence or create damage. It's clearly below the threshold of Article 5 of NATO. But we also see a fairly clear picture that the risk tolerance has increased, which is potentially dangerous. At the same time, we have recent national elections. There was one new pro-Russian party that ran in the elections. They received a vote share of 0.3%. So in one sense, Norwegians have taken a clear stand looking at what's happening on the ground in Ukraine. It's a brutal war of aggression, meaning that it's luckily, for the time being, it's very challenging for Russia to influence public opinion in their direction in Norway.
There are many countries interested in that particular area because there are many countries bordering that area. How everyone is preparing for this threat? You said you work very well with the allies, but there is also a big, let's say, possible competition for resources, for new maritime routes, since the ice caps are melting. Mm-hmm. Arctic becomes a very strategic, but now it's even more for a lot of other countries, not just for Norway or Russia.
Most certainly the attention globally towards the Arctic is increasing. Part of it has to do with the ice that's literally melting, but it's important also to know that the northern coast of Norway is as far north as the northern coast of Alaska. Still, the northern coast of Norway is year-round completely ice-free. We don't have any icebreakers in Norway simply because we don't really need them. And the same is true for the Kola Peninsula. Because of the Gulf Stream coming up, we have ice-free ports year-round. What comes in addition now is climate change and global warming. That's now happening at a rate 3-4 times faster in the Arctic than the global average, meaning that the ice is literally melting, opening up shipping lanes, first along the northern coast of Russia, of Siberia, but still with challenges and ice conditions at several months during the year. But the trend line is pointing towards more maritime traffic in our part of the world, and looking a few decades ahead, but within the century, it's likely that it will be possible to travel just straight across the Arctic Ocean, really shortening the travel times between East Asia and Europe, or the eastern seaboard of North America, for that matter. That will be a potential game changer. And we have the Arctic Council, among other issues, to collectively try to deal with these new topics, challenges. The Arctic Council does not really deal with hard security and military matters, but with all kinds of civilian aspects of living together on the top of the planet, so to speak. Yes, Russia is a member. Look at the map. Russia is an important Arctic country.
Arctica a devenit în ultimele 2 decenii un spațiu de competiție geopolitică accelerată, unde statele arctice, dar și actori externi regiunii, își proiectează interesele strategice. Chiar dacă nu este o putere arctică în sens geografic, China se autodefinește drept stat aproape arctic și urmărește acces la rute comerciale, resurse rare și noi posibilități tehnologice în regiune. În paralel, Statele Unite își consolidează propriile capabilități în nordul îndepărtat. Alaska este un bastion militar, iar în ultimii ani, exercițiile americane în cadrul NATO și prezența navală, inclusiv vizitele portavioanelor în Arctica, transmit un semnal strategic clar. Securitatea Nordului extrem este parte integrantă a arhitecturii de descurajare occidentale.
How is China now involved in the Arctic area? Because it's not an Arctic state, but is definitely present there and is willing to participate to everything that is happening in that area.
No, China certainly has interest in Arctic. It has Arctic ambitions, but for the time being, the presence and the activity of various Chinese actors is actually rather limited. There might be a bit of a hype going around. Nonetheless, this is something we are very aware of when it comes to Chinese activity, presence in the Norwegian high north and in the Norwegian Arctic. We have restrictive policy guarding what is very important national interest, national infrastructure for us. Nonetheless, we facilitate Chinese research, polar research, Arctic research in Norway as well. And looking ahead, with the shipping lines opening up in the Arctic, this is absolutely something that we expect Chinese actors to be very much interested and involved in as well.
So for the moment, nothing is into the defense or espionage area coming from China in the Arctic area?
In the Norwegian or European Arctic high north, it's actually rather limited. In the northern Pacific, it's in the border area between Alaska and Russia. It's a bit different. Then there you will see more specific Russian-Chinese cooperation as well, military Coast Guard area. So far we have not seen similar kind of cooperation in our part of the Arctic.
And how big did the United States increase its presence in the Arctic area? It's an Arctic state, but now with these developments on the other side, from the Russian side.
Alaska being, of course, the U.S. territory in the Arctic is very much a stronghold of the U.S. Armed Forces. We have a decades-long experience of thousands of U.S. soldiers coming to Norway and the Norwegian Arctic to train and exercise, especially for winter training, which for some Americans is a bit of a new experience. But we also see, in terms of the U.S. Navy, we have now in the past years had several visits of aircraft carriers from the U.S. Navy. We've been very grateful for their visits and the training that we've been able to do together with the Norwegian Navy and the Norwegian Armed Forces. But having U.S. aircraft carriers coming to the Arctic is a new development, and it's a signal as well of the new times and the importance also for the U.S. in showing a presence and showing our ability to work and operate together also in the Arctic.
În viziunea guvernului norvegian, Arctica nu este o periferie îndepărtată, ci un spațiu locuit, esențial pentru identitatea națională și pentru viitoarea competitivitate economică în contextul schimbărilor climatice și al interesului global pentru noile rute maritime. Totuși, această orientare socială nu exclude componenta militară. Cadrul strategic rămâne adaptat unei realități de securitate tot mai tensionate, în care Rusia, prezentă masiv pe flancul arctic, continuă să influențeze dinamica regională.
Norway launched this August its strategy for the High North. Will the government of Norway make sure that this area, which is strategic, as you explained, it's of increasing importance when it comes to being a game changer for the world economies, will be more for local communities, or will be turning into a sort of very good defended area?
Arctic part of Norway is an integral part of our country. Just go to the core of who we are. Look at our name. It literally means the way to the north, the way to the Arctic, so to speak. In addition, above the Arctic Circle in Norway, you'll find roughly 10% of our total population, meaning that there are several 100,000 people living in the Norwegian Arctic, living perfectly normal lives. This is not a museum or sort of far away, ice covered. This is an integral part of our country. Yes, it's a bit dark and cold in winter, and yes, there's midnight sun in summer, but otherwise an integral part of our country. With demographic challenges, yes, we need to do more, and we are doing more as a national government to create incentives so people can choose to live their lives in the Norwegian Arctic. At the same time, we are now massively building up and strengthening the Norwegian Armed Forces. We have always built up our armed forces with a emphasis on the Arctic, on the High North. That's where we faced the Soviet Union back in the days. Our country was indeed the only land border between NATO and Soviet Russia for half a century. So that's where we always concentrated our armed forces. Now we are really building them up as well, addressing the realities of the time and the simple fact that we find ourselves in the most serious security situation since 1945, essentially. At the same time, there are so many other opportunities commercially, resources in the Arctic that we want to continue to exploit in a sustainable manner, while also making sure that people can live their lives as in Arctic Norway, as in the rest of Norway, and on the rest of Europe for that regard.
Se poartă discuții de amploare între Uniunea Europeană și Norvegia cu privire la utilizarea activelor ruse înghețate pentru a finanța Ucraina. Propunerea, susținută de o serie de țări europene, este ca fondul suveran norvegian să servească drept garant pentru un împrumut de război, în valoare de aproximativ 130-140 de miliarde de euro, bazat pe activele blocate ale băncii centrale ruse. În Norvegia, ideea a stârnit o dezbatere politică. Câteva partide sprijină ideea, argumentând că fondul, cu active de peste 2 trilioane de dolari, ar putea juca un rol semnificativ în deblocarea unui mecanism esențial pentru sprijinul Ucrainei.
Another discussion that is now going on at the level of European Commission on one side and the Norway government on the other side is the fact that Europeans want to use the frozen assets of Russians, but it must be guaranteed this use, and they want Norway to be the guarantor with the sovereign fund of your country. Would you say that this talk will have a good result for Ukraine?
Well, these discussions are now ongoing. From the Norwegian side, we are long-term, firmly committed supporters of Ukraine. We have a multi-year support program with support now for this year, for 2025, $8.5 billion, the same amount proposed for 2026. Although that's grants money, that's not loans or any kind of guarantee. These are money primarily used for military, for weapons and military equipment, but also very crucial civilian humanitarian support for Ukraine. That's going to be our main avenue for continuing to support Ukraine. And then in addition, together with our European friends and partners, we are discussing other ways that we can be helpful as well. Norway is of course not a member of the EU, but we are working very, very closely with the rest of Europe when it comes to how to support Ukraine. Discussions are still ongoing internally within the EU on how to structure this kind of very, very new groundbreaking arrangement making these funds via some kind of loan setup available for Ukraine. I mean, we are supported from the Norwegian side in doing what we need to do to make sure that we can continue to support Ukraine. Yes, our officials are also talking to European colleagues on a possible role for Norway, and that still I think the EU also needs to decide among itself how best to move forward. There was a summit at the European Council a couple of weeks back where agreement was not reached, so hopefully that can happen as well soon.
Let's hope so. You're visiting now Bucharest, and I do have to ask you, what was the purpose of your visit here in Romania?
The purpose is to build on what's an excellent bilateral relationship between two allies in different corners of Europe, but us in the north, in the northeastern corner, and then of course Romania in the southeastern corner of Europe. We have really, over the past few years, strengthened our security defense partnership, and we are very much like-minded when it comes to supporting both Ukraine and Moldova and the challenging situation these countries find themselves in. So there's a lot of sort of common endeavors, common projects to discuss.
Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe conturile noastre de X și Instagram. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației și a politicii externe, vinerea viitoare de la 11:30 și reluare sâmbătă după miezul nopții. La revedere!